Scream 7, a run back for Neve Campbell, and the story of Sydney trying to protect her daughter Tatum. We have Mark back from Scream 3, Mindy and Chad from 5 and 6, Courtney Cox from all of them.
I'll send you a copy.
I'll send you a copy. Bam! Sid, super bitch. You are so cool.
Starting from the top, every Scream movie has a signature opening scene to show off why we should fear our new Ghostface. I got Drew Barrymore and Milady Jenna as my two best opening performances by far. And that's something this movie's opening, Verdict, does not keep up with at all for me.
I got it right!
At least until the final fight of the opening, that's great, but the lead up fails for me. Recovering the beginning, middle, and ending sequences of the movie roughly too, before passing on to characters. But, at least in the opening scene in the first few minutes of the beginning after, the movie kind of ranks for me. The magic of it really coming from the back end of Act 1 through to the end, so your first time seeing it, don't be put out if you aren't feeling it early.
What's your favorite scary movie?
The opening is going to hit you with a lot of boyfriend teasing his girlfriend before. I mean, it's a Scream movie, so you know. And the guy goes on about notable kills in Stu Macher's house too. I really don't want a recap of what I already know, the kills in Stu Macher's old house, which we won't see for the rest of the movie, and I didn't really feel recaps helped newer viewers either.
Ask her, she'll tell you!
And the only thing we're going to cover that could be considered a big spoiler, but has to be said to cover the movie is, and you know how Billy appeared to Sam as a vision, right?
How you doing, Sam?
So, the nature of the following character's inclusion can become vague based on how uniquely Billy was used, making it less of a true spoiler, thankfully. But our secret returning character in some form, you can click off if you don't want to know at all, is
Turn off.
Stu Macher. I think they wanted to set up Stu and make him sound threatening, maybe, with the talk about kills in his house. But he had nothing to do with killing Amber or Richie, so I mean, it just doesn't work for me, and Samantha and Miss Jenna aren't even in this movie, so why do we set up by talking about Amber or Richie over anything else we could have done with the time? And I only remember hearing Stu's name in that opening like once? So it doesn't stick on your mind distinctly, so if they were trying to set him up in the opening, I don't think it worked at all.
Tell that to Cotton Weary.
The guy teasing his girlfriend over and over got annoying. He's actively unlikable. Why would he take her girlfriend where he takes her if she's not comfortable clearly 100% with it? I just find him mean. The fight scene is really great, and the ending to the opening gets your hopes back into the movie, to be fair. It's just everything before that doesn't work out. So I wouldn't get my hopes up for what comes before the fight scene being amazing like what Miss Jenna or Drew Barrymore gave us. They should have just killed the boyfriend and just focused on the girlfriend, Madison. I feel like it's supposed to be Michelle Randolph's opening who played Madison.
Please welcome Michelle Randolph. Oh my God.
Yes. Together, and then Allie just came.
But they just didn't commit to her hard enough. This gets followed off with yet more scenes that had some stuff I have actually no clue what they were going for. You get hit with the theme to expect for the movie early, Tatum, Sydney's daughter, being annoyed at Sydney. There's this opening subplot about Tatum not being ready for intimacy that gets dragged into the second scene of the movie so Sydney and Mark can talk about it too. I mean, that subplot of Sydney not being ready worked in the original because it had payoff later with Billy, but there's literally no payoff in this movie. So once again, we're struggling early, like with Michelle Randolph as Madison.
That makes it even better.
It just seemed like they had an issue early knowing when to commit stronger or back off a concept, and that took away screen time that could have been used to develop McKenna Grace and Isabel May's chemistry, which we'll get to later.
I'm McKenna Grace, and I play Hannah.
And or maybe they had tidbits of earlier concept they left in the movie, because at least the theme of being ready or not parallels to Billy and Sydney in the original. Even if me taking a friend who's never seen Scream will not catch or get actually anything off that. It's not ideal, but it's something, I guess.
Corn syrup. Same stuff they use for pig's blood in Carrie.
And it's weird for me because I feel like the actors kind of carry this movie more than the writing, which is why most of my green marks will be on when we cover performances and characters. In particular, the returning characters are all as likable as ever, which carries a lot of this movie. So until that, we'll be running a bit of red flags. Shit. But that said, so much gloom and doom, let's go through some check marks early. If you've seen that trailer, you've seen the Tatum in the walls of a house being stabbed at scene. I see why they used that in the trailer because I thought that was great. What Courtney does for fighting contribution is memorable because it leads to a result that shocks you because of how early in the movie it is, in comparison to other Scream movies.
Please interpret that as move your fat tub of lard ass now!
Unleashing for the final death is great, along with Madison's action in the opening, and the first set piece with fighting after the opening, which will leave a mystery, was pretty good too. There is some good, distinct, memorable, dangerous situations for sure. Ghostface up until Courtney Cox, which kind of marks the end of Act 1, is just great in general. He toys with his prey and dominates enough to not regret it in one scene. He has a great little stealth scene I love elsewhere in Act 1.
Not this time.
He seems more calculated than, say, in maybe Scream 6. A certain someone just YOLO shooting up a convenience store because they don't have things under wraps. Not feeling calculated or in control like it feels like our new Ghostface is in the first act. He even puts Mark in a checkmate situation at one point and forces him to drop his gun and kick it away. Courtney Cox, I will say, pulls up massively in style in Act 1, so if Gail's probably your favorite like me, that's great.
Yeah, go.
Hi, Gail Weathers reporting live from Woodbine Police Station.
Mindy and Chad pull up then too. And I'd say for you all to really expect this movie to handle all the returning characters except Mark pretty good, but struggle with everyone else. Nobody new is memorable at all, honestly. Like, the new characters and returning characters just feel disjointed to me trying to coexist. Something about it never feeling like they mesh fluidly except for Tatum and her boyfriend Ben and Tatum's friend Hannah. Speaking of new characters, new Ghostfaces, do not expect the best Ghostface reveal ever, but do expect Ghostface to feel more in control up until the reveal than in the past. It's also going to be tougher to gauge how many Ghostfaces there are in the movie than in the past, especially based on the unique number they ran with in Scream 6, right? So I feel like Ghostface was about as good as ever for me up until, again, the reveal.
Hello, Sydney.
So it makes guessing trickier than ever, or at least did for me. My thought until the end is we were running like a mob of them this time or something, which I won't say whether or not that happened. The ending, though, is great to me. Anyone that likes Sydney is going to enjoy her going girl boss on someone's ass.
In your dreams.
There's a great line where she's told she's washed, and she says, washed my ass. I just love seeing that fire. Usually fleeing scenes don't take our characters over that far of a distance, but we have one of the longest fleeing scene distances in the series. To take Act 2 to Act 3, having a massively, completely void of people area to traverse all over is a lot of fun and unique for the series. Some bad, though, from the middle act. So Mark has one of the biggest low IQ scenes in the series. He knows Ghostface has been nearby very recently, let's just say to be vague. He hears a sound that leads him somewhere ominous, and this mother effer actually starts casually cleaning up at the dark, private, isolated place he heard loud sounds from and sees nobody around at. How can that go wrong? I'm sure rats knock down the big heavy items that need to be cleaned. Yes, I'm sure. That scene of Tatum being stabbed at in the walls happens because Sydney decides to take Tatum out of a safe room and tries backing through walls right nearby where the killer is. He hears them, and I have to wonder why Sydney hadn't tested that method before for sound to make sure she'd be good if she ever had to use it, or had something at least to dampen sound.
Oh, close call.
Chad and Mindy actually completely let the one thing they were trusted with all movie out of their sight and to go out alone late at night after attacks had just happened without a second thought. It's the definition of that I gave you one job meme. And Mason and Jasmine were charismatic and likable for sure this movie, but they kind of get tossed aside for the plot like a secondhand toy when push comes to shove.
But let that be a lesson.
In regards to setting also, I feel like Scream 4 is the best comparison for me. It feels like they travel over town in a similar way. I don't even know how to explain that one thought. Maybe it's just because there's the emphasis of Sydney protecting her niece Jill, and once again in Scream 7 protecting another girl who's related to her in her daughter Tatum, right? So maybe something of that and just Sydney being further in years than the first few Screams. Maybe that just parallels to me. No Melissa Barrera, no Miss Jenna, not even name drops.
And they see your vulnerability and twist it in a way that you don't always expect. How do you be honest without jeopardizing your own health and safety?
So now characters and cast. Mason Gooding and Jasmine Savoy Brown. Chad and Mindy were fun in reduced roles, my favorite for Chad in the series so far, and tied for Scream 5 for my favorite portrayal of Mindy.
Baby, look behind you.
Oh, Randy, look behind you.
It didn't feel like they went anywhere last film, honestly. It was nice Mindy wasn't heavily used as just a plot device this time around to explain the rules.
A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect.
You know, at every step. She only did a little of that in Scream 7, but by cutting that out, we could focus more on fleshing out something that makes her tick, her wanting to get on air in Gail's spot for the news. I honestly liked it. I don't ever feel like Mason Gooding has much to work with, but he always puts together his bit solidly in a way that plays along well with what other people are doing. What I mean is this is his first film where they aren't trying to tie him to a girl, with that girl tie taking up pretty much everything else he's doing in the first two films, and not really allowing Chad any chance to shine for himself.
Yeah.
But even with a repetitive direction, Mason Gooding still finds a way to exert enough witty charm to get by solidly, right? And that's kind of the same here. He has actually no action, not much time on screen, so like always I feel there's something hampering us getting to know Chad for Chad.
Uglier Michael Myers. It was a summer fling, all right? It meant nothing. So don't you fucking talk to her. I don't want to.
But Mason Gooding did, I feel, make well as he could with what he was given.
Thank you.
And again, Chad being able to be Chad, even if not on screen for a ton, was better to me than him getting more screen time. But being relegated to being someone's boyfriend and a 10-stab pincushion again, you know? So this Tatum does not begin to come close to the Tatum we all think of, and that's how we're going to word it, the Tatum we think of.
7-9, what happened? Are you alright? He's not answering any questions, alright? Just leave us alone.
But that is not Isabel's fault. Absolutely not Isabel's fault. Especially in the scene where she locks herself in and is on the phone with Sydney, who's working her through where to get a gun. I thought Isabel had a notably amazing performance there.
We're gonna do this together. You're gonna have to shoot him through the wall.
Where? To the right of the door. Shoot him now! Do it now!
Portraying the fear and desperation and shaking a kid in that situation would be in. So when they let Isabel show emotion, she's great. But the thing that doesn't let the character rise up with the actress for me is how it felt like the entire movie they kept going for a bland, moody teenager sort of script for her. It felt like when she wasn't screaming or crying, they just always had her doing the same thing, you know? The same cold look.
Nice little town you found.
I think it's unfortunate she didn't get more time to mess around with McKenna and her other friends in the movie because they only got to for a hot second early.
You and your pretty daughter reminds me of where we grew up.
Sydney in the original got way more time with Tatum than Isabel got with McKenna, and Sydney and Tatum lifted each other with their chemistry so much that I really think it sucks we didn't let McKenna run up more with Isabel.
Is that Sydney Prescott?
Like Tatum in the original telling Gail to F off as a way to back up Sydney, coming along worried as hell when Sydney was attacked the first time, her reaction when Sydney punched Gail.
Bam! Sid! Super bitch. You are so cool.
It adds so much life and charisma to the film. And that's why this is also the McKenna Grace section, because I think the biggest thing the movie needed was more McKenna playing Tatum to, Tatum. Because Tatum, Sydney's daughter, was pissed at her mom most of the movie, right? Hence the cold resting face, mostly on movie, right? So that makes sense, but she was different with McKenna. I just wish we got to see more of that for Isabel to show that this Tatum has agency beyond just being pissed at her mother and needing to toughen up.
Very big Scream fan. It's probably like top 3 favorite movies of all time, the first one. I'm a massive fan. I work a lot of Comic-Cons, and I've snuck into Scream cast photo ops. So before coming here, I already had taken pictures with everybody. I'm just feel like a giddy fan that snuck onto set.
Tatum's love of theater was just used as a plot device, really, to say that Tatum needs to toughen up and be more like her mom, right? The theater teacher literally taking what could have been a nice moment to see a different side of Tatum and add some depth to her, some bright inner light to help us fall in love with her and root for her, and instead we just beat her back down into the resting cold freeze when the teacher literally tells her she should be tougher like her mother. Hence again, Tatum just has little agency beside being Sydney's daughter. Her friend circle she doesn't get time with like Sydney got with Stu and Billy and Tatum in the original. You can all see where I've gone with this. In that way, I give Isabel's acting performance a not applicable in a way because she didn't really get to show fully what she can do. That said, she did great executing what little was written for her. McKenna was just in FNAF 2 and I guess is in Hunger Games later this year, so she's definitely making a push.
Oh, did I play the games? Yes, I played the games. I think I've played all of them. All of the gameplays, all the Mad Hat theories. I'm a very big fan.
And Matthew Lillard is giving me low-key sort of Christopher Lee in the mid-2000s vibes. If you were a 2000s kid, you remember him in Willy Wonka, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, right? Matthew Lillard getting in some pretty notable things for 2020's kids suddenly with FNAF and Scream.
Why are they doing this?
So it's interesting for me to specifically see what he and McKenna do going forward. Funny enough, McKenna I felt like was the underutilized actor or actress in FNAF 2 also, so I don't know, I'd never heard of her until then, but I guess this is a pro McKenna Grace video as much as anything else. So for me, the last 2 movies probably have the weakest killers upon reveal in the series. A long way down from Billy.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
From the exciting adrenaline psychoticness of Billy's pissed off mom, Amber's psycho frenzy.
No, it's not my fault, it's not my fault!
Jill I adored to death.
Come on.
So for me, the last 2 movies probably have the weakest killers upon reveal in the series. Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox. I feel like just putting these 2 together because their acting styles reminded me so much of each other in a way. They both portrayed their characters so silky smooth on every action.
Tatum, listen to me. He's trying to find another way in. We're gonna do this together.
You ever notice how some actors or actresses kind of lose a little bit of fluidness with the last breath of a delivery, some in the beginning, or just have a line or two where their tone just doesn't fit right? I feel like Neve and Courtney were actually systematically perfect with their acting, if not a little robotic. Neve, I thought, had better line delivery than with her last outing. Scream 5, more material doesn't hurt for her to run with, maybe, or maybe more focus on giving her character depth helps with direction. But whatever the case, Neve entirely took advantage of executing what she was given for sure. Courtney really didn't have a ton going on in this movie, but same thing I'd say with both of them, just systematically good.
Is that Sydney Prescott they took away? I'm not talking to you. What happened to her? None of your damn business.
They played their parts and contributed to the team really well. Doing a good job doesn't necessarily mean you always have to go get a giant award and get put down as a must-see performance in a work, you know?
This is Gale Weathers signing off.
Matthew Lillard. I had to tell myself after the movie, oh wait, this movie was 30 years in filming after the original Scream.
Surprise, Sydney.
Because it felt like you were watching old test footage from the original Scream when he was on Scream. He felt that natural. Easily the most memorable and eye-tugging performance in the movie for me, for sure. I feel like that jolt he gave it alone is going to up a lot of people's reviews a star higher than it would otherwise. I think it does for me, for sure, and I think a lot of people are going to like this movie a little more as time goes on, just because they can't get over how fun his scenes are. But that's my thoughts after having seen the movie earlier today. All that's to say, okay, Light, but what are you rating it? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Should I go see it? Or
I told you I don't know these movies.
as a theater experience, I'd legitimately give it 9 stars out of 10. One of my favorite movies I've seen in theaters for sure. Scream is fun. Horror is fun, the mystery is fun, the suspense is fun, wondering who lives and who dies is fun. Matthew is great, Courtney and Neve always provide.
Well, you just never know when or where a story will break.
But it's probably like a 6 out of 10 though overall, because after a first watch, a lot of the adrenaline from those wonders kind of wears off. Being in theater and the movie itself you'd be watching at home on your couch.
Come on, man, turn around! Turn around, dude!
Behind you! Turn around! Look!
Are kind of two different things. I think Matthew Lillard is emblematic of the issue with this movie because he was legendary, right? Like in the original, Tatum was legendary in the original, Billy was legendary, Randy was legendary. Legendary meaning they had character, they brought spunk, they had their own unique sparks. I don't think the actors and actresses are necessarily better or worse than what Scream 7 had, but I think their characters were just better written and more charismatic.
I like that. That's good. Millennium.
Randy in his geeky way, Stu in his toxic way. Tatum in her sassy way, Billy in his edgelord, curtain bangs sort of cool way.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Like, I look at everyone in this movie and just think, he's fine, his actor did good, she's good, her actress did good, but what's keeping this movie from being better, from having more rewatchability, from making me want to watch it again, is the ability to fall in love with how the characters express themselves. You cannot begin to feel character from Tatum's friends in this movie like you could from Sydney's friends in the original. That's a big problem.
Next to her spleen and her pancreas.
Randy, you goon fuck, I'm trying to eat here.
Sydney and her friends messing around at school was fun to watch. OG Tatum getting sassy never gets old to this day. I don't see those sorts of character moments in this movie. Again, Stu going berserk is a lot of fun, like that fun they had in Scream 1, but that's about it for me. Sydney is a worried mom, so that character spark is not going to come from her messing around naturally, and she doesn't have to. We can't over-insert Chad or Mindy, or we just have Tatum's friend circle unloved and continuing to muck up the waters. So I really feel like we needed more time for Gale Weathers to give some character spark in some sort of way.
Here, let me just get my coat.
Or, again, Tatum and her friends, if not just at least Tatum and Hannah messing around for some vintage character fun to keep the movie from just being. point A to point B to point C to point D without getting to show much in between other than screaming or crying. The theater scene early, I think, was crucial in holding this movie back. When we start the long chase scene, which leads into the ending finale, we didn't need two people dying at the exact same place, side by side. We should have had one die there, the other getting stuck in the theater, testing an outfit or something as McKenna's understudy, leaving McKenna and Isabel to have a friendship spark backstage to keep their chemistry from getting split, so they can give bright energy later, because they were the clear spark for me that could bring back some of the charismatic magic of kids messing around from the original Scream, right?
Fuck you, nutcase. Where were you last night?
Working. Thank you.
Oh, at the video store? I thought they fired your sorry ass.
That also means we could have saved a lot of Scream time from the fight where two people died, thus buying us more time to develop McKenna and Tatum, which would act as our Sydney and Tatum. Since they had McKenna run blonde, I also would have run Tatum's hair brunette to give another blonde-brunette Prescott friend combo being harassed by Stu. I think that would have been so awesome and was the actual killing blow to really elevating the Scream movie, that and the lack of a great Ghostface reveal.
Do you know what it was like growing up in this family? Related to you?
Sydney talking about how she named Tatum after her amazing friend Tatum would have hit so much better if this time, instead of Tatum dying, she saves her friend. If somehow Sydney wasn't able to get somewhere in time, because there was that office scene where Sydney couldn't get there in time, Hannah could have been taken instead to lure Sydney in, but that's when we could have been shown something amazing from Tatum. Tatum not listening to her mom on the phone and going after her best friend first. The blonde-brunette friendship, Tatum able to save her friend this time. We could have given Neve such a beautiful moment for Sydney to break down crying because of what it meant to her, because of how everything came full circle.
Come on, Sid. Those murders are related. Just stop.
And suddenly all that talk of her friendship with Tatum hits differently after seeing her Tatum able to save her best friend, and how proud of Tatum Sydney would have been for being able to do what she couldn't back in the day. Just an obvious missed opportunity, especially if Tatum and Hannah survived a garage scene to do that trick. Like, really, get me on the writing for next movie. What do you have to lose from hearing me out? I'm literally a writer after all.
So, how's the book?
Well, it'll be out later this year.
Oh, I'll look for it.
I, ironically, also as a horror writer, you could say, but I also didn't like some of the gore in the movie. Horror involves fear, emotions, meaning, tension. Gore inherently doesn't mean actually anything. So some of the gore in the movie, especially the first slow focus on the first killing in the opening, just seemed like an attempt to paste over flaws with intuitive shock value rather than to provide something with substance. You quite literally do not have to have graphic gore to do good horror. I actually hate it as a horror writer. It's just such a band-aid attempt. It's just so tasteless. And that's all why I just consider this a solid movie. I wouldn't call it great, but it's not bad to me. If you want a horror movie for fun, I definitely recommend going to see it 100%. If you want something that'll hold to you more than just a fun movie, I don't think this will likely be all that much. My favorite horror movie is Orphan.
It's going to be fun. We scared her so much she'll never come back here.
With Scream 1 right behind, so much character spark in there, right? My mother is obsessed with the housemaid that Sydney Sweeney just nailed.
Where are they? I didn't see any notes.
Bullshit! Where are they?
And a lot of character spark too there, right? Amanda Seyfried had so much Scream 1 type spark and character to her.
When I write my hand, when my nails are...
Sydney even kind of reminding me of Scream 1 Sydney.
Good.
Therefore, my final verdict is 1 movie theater trip out of 10 needs more McKenna Grace. But hey, that's just how it tasted to me, and that's after my initial viewing, which is of course ideal for other people thinking about an initial viewing too, right, you know?
It's a Scream, baby! Hold on a sec. I'll be right back.
Anywho, thank you all for watching, love you all. As a little 5-time published horror author and YouTuber, commenting, sharing, and liking helps so much. Thanks again, love you all, lights out,